What's up, everybody? Zach Witovich here on the Building Code with my friend and colleague and my best friend, Charley Birtwistle.
Wow, BT buds, Zach and Charley. I'm Charley Birtwistle, very honored co-host of the Building Code here.
Just really, flourishing in our relationship. Thought I'd share a little bit of love here on the intro.
I appreciate that, Zach.
Who do we have today, Charley?
We have Paul Ledet, coming to us live all the way from Thibodaux, Louisiana. He works for Ledet Homes, who was his father, founded the company 40 years ago. I think their 40th anniversary is coming up this year. So very, very long-standing business, huge, has a big impact on the community down there. Hopefully we get to dive into that a little bit, just kind of the client relationships that they have and how they've managed to keep this, business going for 40 years.
They've been with Buildertrend for a long time too. So I'm interested to kind of hear the genesis of how they got started and where they're at today. As we know, it's a process. So let's get Paul in here and let's start talking about it. Paul, welcome to the Building Code. We're extremely excited to have you here today. You're a bit of a legend here at Buildertrend. I was talking to some people before the episode, and I was like, yeah, we have Paul from Ledet Homes. And they're like, I know him. I trained him 7 years ago. And like all these people knew who you were. You've been to Buildertrend University multiple times. So this is special status on the Building Code today.
Honestly,
welcome.
On us for not getting you on sooner.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure, Paul.
On Danielle.
Yeah, our coordinator over here. For those of our listeners that aren't lucky enough to know you, can you tell us, just a little bit about yourself and your background, Paul?
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for having me. And that's intro's pretty funny. I would say everybody there at Buildertrend. I mean, I'll probably talk with everybody. I mean, they're like family to me, and they've really pushed us along. So, and where we're at today for everybody there. So we thank y'all, of course. So a little bit about me, I guess. I started, our company is a 40-year-old company, almost might be 40 next year. My dad started it, long ago, and I started with him about 10 years ago. And, I have a construction management degree, and I graduated from LSU, go Tigers. And
knew it was coming.
And then I went work in New Orleans, and I just hated it, and I was fishing a lot, and I was, working, and my dad was like, look, why don't you just move home? I can keep you busy for 1 year. And I just took a leap of faith, and went, moved down here from New Orleans. And then we worked for about a year and a half, and then we ended up finding Buildertrend up at Las Vegas, and that's where we kind of started with Buildertrend. And then that kind of just became my baby for the next several years. And we've really started to implement each part of the program and with our customers and the way we do business. And about 4 years ago, I took over from my dad, and now I got him working for me, which is nice.
There you go.
But I mean, we got him, 40 years of mistakes is what we call it. A lot of experience. So, and that's good. So I've been here, and what I thought was just 1 year, maybe a stepping stone, ended up being 10 years. I think this is my 10th year now that I've been here, and got a nice little family that I'm born and raised here. I got 2 little girls, and I got a 3rd girl on the way. So
congrats.
Pretty excited. Yeah. 2 dogs, and kind of starting to, really put some solid roots here, or back here, I should say. And we've really been enjoying it. So
I got to ask, I just love hearing the stories of how these construction companies get started. I mean, 40 years is an incredible amount of time that your dad put in. Yeah. What brought him to home building? I mean, what was his what got him there?
So he's an accountant by trade. And we're a big oil field town here. Obviously, back in the 80s, home of Thibodaux was a pretty poppin' area. And he worked for this big oil field company, and they put him on a boat, put him at the bow of the boat, and, getting seasick.
I got a CPA for this.
Yeah, and just hated it. And they stuck him in a cubicle, and he just didn't like it. And so he went into real estate. And he had a brother-in-law that was in the business, kind of in home building. And they were like, "Oh, Chris, you can do it." And then he just kind of started doing it, and he just based it. He knew numbers,
Yep.
and then he knew customer service. And you got to know my dad. I mean, he's been cutting grass since he was 9 years old. He used to carry a little push mower on his bike, and he's always driven. That whole generation is a kind of a different breed, but he, yeah, and that's kind of what he built it on was, he knew numbers and he knew customer service, and that's kind of where it took off, and
Those
he just
are
started building.
those are two key parts of running a good business, though. I mean, it shows obviously it worked. The formula's there. I'm not sure he probably thought someday my son will be putting me at the desk again to do accounting or whatever it is you're having to do these days. But that's an awesome story.
Yeah, no, and it really had. It's been awesome. We kind of, the first 2 years we both didn't think that we were going to make it together.
Can't imagine.
And I think after about 6 months of starting, I just said, "You got to just let me fail. You got to just let me go." And I would think that was the best thing we ever did. We kind of let me stumble, and then. I'm not just saying this, but I think Buildertrend was kind of a pivotal point for us because we were just all over the place with, office, just junk and paper and billing. It was a mess. And it just made things easier for us to where we weren't down each other's throats the whole time. And it gave us our space because obviously we can work from wherever.
And obviously it's paid off for you guys. You guys have a very successful business. You've mentioned customer service a couple different times now. I was actually on your website today doing a little research, and that's something that you guys really stress, in customer facing type, marketing promotions and stuff like that, is the customer service, the client relationship. How has that kind of aspect of your business contributed to, the longevity, 40 years, but also the successfulness of your company?
So I'll give you an example of kind of what my dad kind of built his whole business off of is, obviously Hurricane Ida just kind of ripped through our area, the eye wall passing maybe 10 miles away from here.
Wow.
And, we had several calls into our office. "Hey, Chris, you built my house in 1978 or something like, 1981. And, we want you to, can you help us just direct us on this or direct us on that?" And people know there's probably 100 phone calls like that, and you feel bad. You try to help them all. And I'm sorry if we didn't get to everybody yet. But that just goes to show you where people are calling in, knowing that, Dad was always there, or Ledet Homes was always there to, even if it was just to give information or pass on anything, identifying what roof we put on their house in 1990, or we had all of these files that we just continue the service after the sale. And that was one thing that my dad always harped on. We want to be a place where people can call us back and help get, their 5-year-old refrigerator replaced, if they're not capable of doing it on their own, or setting up, service calls or whatever it may be. And so that's kind of played a big role in our success, I think. So
I love hearing there. When I was traveling for Buildertrend, I would talk to these businesses, and there's so many stories like this where you have family at the center of it, community. I don't think construction gets that reputation broader, like across the public, but when you find a builder who has that culture and that impact, it is truly heartwarming. I mean, I'm like kind of getting emotional about it. It's weird, but that's just incredible. And it just goes to show that with the customer, when we always preach this at Buildertrend, like we want to help people with everything. How does Buildertrend fit into that? It's important to be accessible, but there's balance, of course, and Buildertrend obviously has technology capabilities. So how do you guys use it? What does that look like for you now with the way that you do things and the way that Buildertrend maybe changed it?
I knew Buildertrend was a go from the start. just from our first interview at Las Vegas was, just open arms. And that's kind of how we treat our customers. Look, whatever you need, and people are always like, well, what does it cost? Like, it costs nothing. Just call me. We just want to be a soundboard for you. And that's how my relationship developed with Buildertrend. Hey, look, we're here. If you got questions, whatever, open arms, whatever. And it just was great. And that's kind of how we were able to, have that relationship with y'all. And I guess going forward, how it's changed with our customers, I will say though that technology is a double-edged sword, because the intention I find with technology is, or what happens is, you kind of lose a lot of face-to-face or one-on-one phone conversation. And if you're not aware of that, and sometimes I have to remind the girls or myself even, hey, just pick up the phone and call them. And oftentimes that goes a lot further than a message through the program. Now I will say though, we have a lot less of those conversations because everything's so streamlined and so organized. I find that we're having less like issues where a one-on-one conversation is necessary.
Yeah, they're just happy.
But for the most part, people are just happier.
Yeah.
So it's good. And so it really fit into our dynamic. And we just had to, make sure we're still having that engagement with our customer face-to-face or on the phone call. So
we were just talking to our last guest about that exact concept. He was a digital marketing specialist who helps contractors, and we were talking about the automation of the construction industry, and we were just discussing, this is so funny, like, how do you balance the coldness of convenience, speed, and that's kind of what customers expect, is a fast experience with the hand holding, making sure they're taken care of, making them feel like they're being, being received well, So
right.
It sounds like you guys have found that balance though, that you're still able to call people, but you're not just, ignoring them either, or giving them nothing.
That's right. Usually the phone calls for, just to have a conversation and talk it out. I've got a guy right now that I'm like, look, whatever you can put whatever you want through the program, but like, man, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call me. And what we've started doing is offering people, we have different stages that we're picking selections out, and we're kind of grouped them in, 5 or 6 groups or whatever. And we're starting to offer like a round table meeting if they want to talk it out, their finishes, and just are unsure of things. And no one's really taken us up on that, but just having that out there has opened up the door for just general conversation. So it kind of take that, like, that rigid, just because we're like a machine, we're an oil machine. And sometimes you still got to throw that personal aspect in it, so.
Have you guys set up any other, that's a really interesting concept of a very, very specific part of the home building process. Any other kind of ideas or new concepts that you guys are toying with where like introducing selections at this point works really, really well, or hey, a phone call here works well, or where do you guys think maybe some areas that some builders, may be failing or misstepping with the relationship with the homeowner, where you guys have found kind of a unique solution to that?
I would say that they're missing out on the ability to be transparent with their customer. I would find that the more transparent you are with having your selections or allowances open and available, and my vendors are uploading quotes that they can view, I mean, that goes a long way for an owner to be able to, a flooring selection, to be able to click through there, and they can see basically exactly the labor amount, the flooring amount, the square footage, the labor rate, the flooring rate, and they just gives them a better sense of trust, I suppose. And I know not everybody does that, and that may be a weird concept for some builders, but when you open that door to have that kind of that trust and communication, I find that the jobs generally go a lot smoother. To make sure they're getting what they paid for, So That's what I would say.
I'm intrigued. You said your vendors log into Buildertrend and upload the quotes. You don't do it for them?
I don't do it for them.
There's going to be a lot of builders like, how did you manage that?
Look, I'm not 100. We're not 100%, but I would say we're probably 80% where they do
wow.
it, and it's nice. And they're bidding for us and uploading bids and stuff. And look, it didn't happen overnight. It took a couple of meetings and some beers and some training to go over and look, we have some of the best, I would call them our, working partners. Our subs and vendors are some of the best crews that we have in the area. And, once they kind of, and I use the word buy-in, not financially, but just, put in the time, they're realizing that it's a savior on them too. And it's a really clean, I got my floor guy who he and I are friends. We actually do the podcast together, Josh, and he was probably one of the first vendors that really kind of, they took off, and they were like, it's amazing just the level of efficiency. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. Like, if everybody did this, it just takes a lot of work off of us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Zach and I both kind of shared a glance, I think, when you said 80% of your vendors are logging in and you have that kind of relationship with them. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you have some people reaching out to you after this episode to get some advice from you.
Like, how many beers did it take?
Exactly, how many beers did it take for you to get them to do this? And also, you did mention the podcast again. That's we were talking about it before. I feel like you have to give it a shout out now.
Yeah, man, check it out. The Wasted Hour. You can find us on any major platform if you want. It's nothing about building, but it does give my friend and I and the people that we've had on have a lot of good insight, which I would think help any body in business, whether you're a builder or whatnot. So yeah, thank you.
Heck yeah, the Wasted Hour. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Check it out.
Back to home building and the client relationship now. You've mentioned kind of a few kind of key aspects of the entire build, whether that's, the initial bidding process, the selection process. We even mentioned kind of the lead process a little bit as well too. Where do you find that the client communication and that relationship is kind of gets put to the test the most? Is it when you're initially reaching out to them trying to sell them, or is it when, hey, you need to pick out these selections, we're going to put them in your house? Like, where do you find kind of the biggest test there?
The relationship would be the punch out phase, probably. That is the ultimate test of, and it just gets, people ready to move in and we're ready to be done. We kind of get, relationship fatigue. You're dealing with somebody 8, 10 months, 12 months, custom build. They're kind of worn out. I wouldn't admit that we were worn out, but we're trying to get these subs and get these things wrapped up, and tensions are usually high. So I would say that would be definitely the part where it gets put to the test.
What do you do to try and ease their anxiety in that punch out phase? If that's kind of the moment zero where it's like we need to execute, what are you doing to help alleviate the tension?
Well, the last 2 years have been pretty weird with COVID. Lots of loose ends that are way more loose ends than normal. Things taking the lead times, they're taking forever, and you're trying to move them in without appliances and stuff. Managing their expectations is the kind of the key. But even then, we're trying to manage them, and we're wrong several times. Because we rely on information too, but really just trying to manage their expectations and trying to set deadlines, but not, hey, look, we're trying to commit to this 2 weeks, but we want it to be finished before you move in. That was a real tough one for us this past year. We've had a few stack on each other, mostly due to COVID, and then tremendous amount of loose ends that, they were ready to move in and we're ready to have them move in. And that was a tough one, but mostly we do pretty good.
Yeah, the managing expectations and just time frame and things like that, I feel like that's a common theme, obviously, especially the past year that Zach and I have been hosting the pod here, that we're talking to, from the suppliers to the home builders to the subcontractors to the owners, everyone that we talk about what a kind of key aspect that is. Do you guys, how much of the like scheduling, and layout of the build process do you guys expose to the homeowners? Do you keep that pretty close to the chest, or do you have them reference that quite a bit?
So it's visible, and it's they can see the whole project from the beginning to the end, from the start of the job. Lately, I've been telling people for the last year and a half that this is just a guide,
Right.
and this is what our expectations are. This is what we'll strive for, but the world's just really different right now, and I would say that 100% of my customers have been pretty cool about it, and they understand. And then we just had the hurricane rip through here, which kind of even made it worse. But I think what it's doing is giving people a lot of patience. We'll see how long that lasts,
Right.
because it usually doesn't last very long. But
That was what popped into my
again,
head. You're mid-construction and a hurricane hits. Like, what happens? What do you do?
well, I'll tell you what I did for the first 4 weeks. I'll tell you, I left here. I kind of freaked out on Saturday morning, right before the storm hit, the day before the storm hit. Went to Houston. My wife and I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. My wife's pregnant now. And, it was just, you just felt like I just woke up, felt like I get out of here. Well, I also left 7 projects here that I knew we had them all set up, ready to go. But I drove back Monday morning. I was in Thibodaux for 9 a.m. right after the storm hit. So they were clearing the roads in front of me as I was pulling in, and then they shut down. You couldn't get into the city or to our town. And man, hundreds of phone calls, roofs leaking, tarp my roof. And I called my roofer, and, we tarp roofs for probably a week and a half, probably did 100 roofs, maybe more, mostly with all my neighbors, my friends, my previous customers, and just tried to get them. And that's what you did for a whole week. And then you're just in survival mode. I mean, it's terrible. The first 3 weeks you're just trying to pick up your friends' places, my brother, my parents, anybody you can help with. And it's really cool. Our community kind of came together. We were without power for 14 days.
Wow.
And yeah. And so luckily I had the forethought I've got some projects down in Deep Homo that didn't get power for 20 something days. And some of my crews are ready to go back to work. So I had generators and fuel, and, had to get all that laid out. And, then you're trying to see, because during Katrina, you lost a major sub base overnight. They picked up and left. We were very fortunate that all of our subs and vendors have been or back on track with us for our new builds. I tried to explain to my customers that we're going to stick in new construction and not try to tackle those, because and it's so heartbreaking. You want to help build some of these communities and where the people's houses flood, but you just can't help everybody. And we're just not geared up for that. But it's heartbreaking to have to tell so many people no. So the last month I've been telling people no and trying to help people that we can, and trying to not be insensitive to the construction that we have
Current
going on.
customers,
Right.
Because they were nervous. Is Paul going to just pick up and go work on whatever? But no, we just trying to have that balance for help out who we can and continue on the way we're doing business. So
Yeah, that's, pretty powerful to even like think about having to, make some of those choices and obviously just the overwhelming demand out there for these things is
man,
tough.
it's giving me chills thinking about it. When you're in it, you don't really, it's probably the first time I talk about it, but it's heavy, trying to decide who you can help, and it's tough. Coming out of a hurricane like that was pretty ravaging. Thibodaux, where I live, we had a lot of roof damage, but you get south of here, it was pretty bad, lots of things just leveled. So
yeah, we had an episode, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes ago with Bill Gray from New Zealand, and he talked about similar, natural disasters. His was hurricanes, and just like going
Earthquakes.
from, you're right, your hurricanes.
This is
His was
hurricanes.
earthquakes. I got my disasters mixed up, but yeah, the going from everything's fine to every house for miles and miles needs some type of repair, and overnight is crazy for people like us in Nebraska to think about.
Yeah. Our tornado.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
Oh, geez, you can't just say that.
Oh no! What did I do? And with that's kind of, it's not really in the script necessarily, but it's interesting. In that episode, we talked a lot about like how building has to adjust for those things. I mean, now when you're building your homes, are like hurricane things considered when it codes is what the word I was looking for.
So, yeah. So they changed the codes mega after Katrina.
Yeah, I was gonna say
pretty much any house built in the last 20 years did fine. I mean, you had some cosmetic damage, but nothing structural. But some of these places that were built pre-Katrina were absolutely decimated. So the codes are working, which is what you want.
Great.
Everybody kind of complained about it, but it drives up building costs. But if you're going to be 20 miles from the coast, we had 130-mile-an-hour winds here. You need to be able to sustain that.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting about the wave effects. Like, if that happens, you change, and then it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I see why we changed them now. It makes sense. It doesn't feel like it's a good investment at the time, but here we are.
Yeah. So but we did well. All my projects, did very, very well. Almost no damage on any of them. My house did fine. So we were very fortunate. I was very fortunate, I would say. So
did Buildertrend play any facilitation to help kind of communicate these things while the storm was kind of like ramping up, and like where's that place in?
The downside of being a web-based builder is that you need web, and we didn't have
We're working
internet.
Offline mode. Let's make it happen. At least to let you let it upload later.
We had nothing. I even thought I was like, my car has Wi-Fi in it. Well, the satellites and the AT&T towers here were just absolutely destroyed. So it took a long time for us to. We were in the dark for 3 or 4 days. Couldn't get in touch with customers. Couldn't get in touch with anybody, family. You had to go drive by the house, but 24-hour curfew. It just was it was intense. But no, look, now once I got the slightest glimpse of the internet, things started to roll in, and things started to kind of, it was only 3 or 4 days afterward, but
you're like,
we were
actually,
in the
can we
dark
go
for a
back?
while.
Can we go back to the dark where I didn't have
imagine.
400 emails in my inbox?
Notifications had been blowing up.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. A million voicemails. But yeah, we got out of it, and things are starting to kind of get to normal somewhat. So
the Saints are coming back now in New Orleans. Right, things are getting back to normal.
Yeah, that's right.
Next topic here, yeah. Well, Paul, we're getting pretty close to time here. This has been an awesome interview, an awesome episode. Fantastic to talk with. Before we let you go, any final kind of remarks or things you want to leave our listeners with?
Look, I think it's important for the early, if anybody's early on in Buildertrend, to know that keep leaning on those guys at Buildertrend. They'll help you out. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for I'm trying to think of some of the names. Well, Taylor Henney for sure was a extreme bulldog for me. Really pushed me over the edge on Buildertrend.
Sounds like her.
And then just keep leaning on everybody, and y'all are there to help and take it to the next limit. Because it would be worth it. It's a lot of work up front, but it's easy once it's all done.
There you go. Love it. Well, appreciate the time, Paul.
Yeah.
We'll let you get going here. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Best of luck to you and your family. And we'll see you at your next BTU attendance.
Yeah, man. I'll be there in October. Well, in a short period of time, 2 weeks.
Yeah. We're excited to meet you in person. We'll see you there.
Yeah, man. We'll see you then.
Wow. lot of ground covered in that episode there, Charlie.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my first time meeting Paul. I understand why he's such a legend around, the Buildertrend office here.
We're going to need to put up like a Buildertrend Hall of Fame of our best users, and I think he probably would.
We'll put him up there?
We'll have like a nomination ceremony, the whole thing.
Yeah.
We'll just like get people in a room and like fight it out about who belongs in there. And
I love that idea. We could do like a whole like award ceremony for it. It'd be great. But
the budget's going to be outstanding.
Yeah,
We'll talk with Danielle, our producer. We'll get our director involved. We'll get the whole thing. And just this outro is taking a little too long on this particular piece. What did you learn from Paul?
Well, one, I was, it's not really how we started the episode, but towards the end there, where we just started talking about building during a hurricane, something that we never really think about here. And obviously, incredibly sad that, that much destruction can happen. But hearing Paul talk about how much he wants to give back and help as many people as you can, I think that relates really, really strongly to what we were originally talking about, which is just client relationship, caring about the people that you work for, and, making as big of an impact in the community as you can. So I thought it was, it was inspiring to hear him talk about, what he does. And you can tell he just like truly loves it. But very, very interesting episode. Interested to hear what your takeaways were, Zach.
Yeah, there's so many people out there that we've talked to on the podcast and other users that I've been exposed to that have such similar stories, similar backgrounds. I love hearing people when they start these companies and they're not in construction and had nothing in it. You hear it time and time again. And like, well, how many industries are out there can you just like break into? But there's so many important needed skills in order to execute in construction that I think it's a really cool thing in the construction industry of all these people with different experiences, walks of life, different levels of education coming together and delivering dreams to people. And there's not a lot of places or jobs that are like that. And that's the really cool part when we talk to people like Paul, is you can just see it in who he is and the way that their company operates. And there are countless of listeners, builders out there who are the same way. And it's just really, really awesome to get to talk to people like that.
Yeah, that was a heartfelt statement, but I completely agree. It's
something in the air. The fall weather, the pumpkin spice lattes are just making me
flowing today,
making me a little soft.
I love that. Well, Paul will be in Omaha here in a couple of weeks for Buildertrend University, so super excited to see him. If any of our listeners out there are interested in learning more about Buildertrend and meeting me and Zach, if you don't want to come here,
I don't think we're the draw for BTU.
That's
Charley.
why I started laughing before I could even get it out. If you want to come have a meet and greet at the next Buildertrend University, we will be here. But thanks again, Paul, for being on the show today. I think that about does it for us. I'm Charlie.
I'm Zach.
And this is The Building Code. See ya.